Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, evening, night, wherever you are joining us from. I'm really delighted to welcome all of you to today's exciting webinar titled Advisory Groups for Research in India, Pakistan, and Vietnam. And it's a webinar that is brought to you by the MESH Community Engagement Network alongside the Global Health Network from the University of Oxford. My name is Dr. Timo Tolppa, and I am from the University of British Columbia in Canada, as well as Ziauddin University in Pakistan, where I am at the moment. And I work very closely with several public engagement groups in South Asia. But you won't hear much from me today, luckily. I will be your host, but we have the distinct privilege of hearing from 4 excellent speakers today about their experiences of public engagement across 3 Asian countries. Before we start, some housekeeping first. Let's run through that. First of all, this session is being recorded. The recording will be shared in the coming weeks on the Global Health Network platform, so you can review it and share the materials and with others as well. The materials that we will be talking about and sharing will also be shared in the chat by our wonderful Global Health Network team who's helping us. You may choose to automatically translate the speech to subtitles in your chosen language. And to do this, please navigate to the closed captions function and select your language. You can use the chat function, as I've already said, to introduce yourselves, as well as report any technical issues you may be experiencing. Our wonderful team at the Global Health Network will assist you with all of that. If you'd like to interact with us, the speakers and the panel, please use the Q&A feature to post your questions and comments. You can do that anonymously or not. It is up to you. Because of the number of participants, your videos and microphones have been disabled, but during the Q&A portion of this session, you may have an opportunity to put your questions to the panel by yourself. And if you raise your hand, we will enable your microphone so that you can speak. And as I said, we have dedicated time allocated for a question and answer session, so we'll try to get through as many questions as possible. If we're unable to do so, we will compile responses to them and send them to you after the session. And that is it for housekeeping. Our team will give you more repeat that information, I'm sure, throughout the session as well. And I'm seeing lots of hellos in the chat, so please keep those coming. Today's webinar is focused on advisory groups for research. Now, the meaningful engagement of patients, their families, and members of the public has received some well-deserved attention in health research in the past few years. And incorporating the patient voice in research has the potential of really democratizing science, building trust with communities, and improving the quality of the research that we conduct. But engagement with communities, however, is not always a straightforward process or without its difficulties. Luckily, there are superheroes amongst us who work in the field of involvement and engagement, and 4 such superheroes join us today. Our speakers will share their perspectives and experiences for advisory groups for research, and will hopefully inspire all of you to take up this valuable practice in your research work as well. So you can see our panel members and the agenda there. We have 4 speakers from different countries sharing their experiences. Huong from Vietnam, Pradeep from India, Arishay from Pakistan, and maybe most importantly, Zahyd, our patient and public partner from Pakistan as well. And I'll introduce everyone as we go along. But who is with us here today at this webinar? We had over 400 registrations from 63 different countries. So if our speakers did not feel pressure before, they may do so now, but we are all here to listen and learn from your experiences. We are very thankful for all attendees and our speakers for being here. So let's begin the program for today. And first, I would like to welcome Huong from the Oxford University Clinical Research Unit, OUCRU in Vietnam. She's a senior public engagement coordinator, specializing in fostering meaningful engagement between researchers and communities. And she led the establishment of OUCRU's first community advisory group for clinical trials and has led multiple community engagement initiatives, supporting research and patient-centered engagement at the Hospital for Tropical Diseases. Huong currently manages the PCE Seed Award Program, promoting a culture of public engagement in research. And she's also developing a training curriculum to enhance researchers' capacity in community engagement, ensuring ethical, inclusive, and impactful research practices. She has a lot of valuable expertise and experience to share with us. Please, warm welcome to Huong. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Timo, for very warm welcome to us. Okay, hello everyone, and thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be the first speaker today. So I am Huong. I'm a senior engagement coordinator at OUCRU in Vietnam. So today I will share with you about our experience with the OUCRU Health Research Advisory Board, or HIAB, how we set up, operate, and the lesson learned from this program. Next slide, please. So first of all, I would like to introduce about OUCRU. So OUCRU, Oxford University Clinical Research Unit, is a big-scale clinical trial and health research working across Vietnam, Indonesia, and Nepal. So our mission is focused on infectious disease, aim to improve the health outcome for the population across the Southeast Asia. So the OUCRU HIAB is located in the Hospital for Tropical Disease in the Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. So this hospital is a tertiary referral hospital for the infectious disease with a catchment population of over 40 million people in South Vietnam. And most of the study in the OUCRU Ho Chi Minh City is based on the hospital. So it's very hard for us to identify who is our communities. So that's why we set up this public board to understand more about our community. Next slide, please. So what is the OUCRU HIAB? So this is a platform that where the researchers and health professionals and the community members can sit in the same table to discuss about the OUCRU research to make it more relevant and practical and impactful for the community. Next slide, please. And so what is the purpose of the HIAB? So first of our purpose is connecting the researcher with the public member so that the researchers can understand more about the public points of view and the perspective. Then so they can contribute the feedback and recommendation for OUCRU research. By the way, on that, we also aim to increase the HIAB member the knowledge and understanding about the health and also about the research. Next slide. So what is the membership of this group? So until now, we have 14 members in this group, include 4 male and 10 females. So all of them are more than 18 years old, and they living in the Ho Chi Minh City, and they have a like interest in health and research. So we aim for a diversity background. So you can see people come from different background, from yoga teachers, freelancers, or social work, or some marketers or school nurse. So we intentionally we not recruit someone with the right of knowledge of research, but we try to recruit someone with some like interest of health or research, because we think that it will bring the press and the grounded perspective from the community. Next slide. So this slide outlines a typical process of how we set up the HIAB here. So first process is the recruitment. So we post the poster in our hospital and different network of private clinic that we have worked with, and we push there a link for the application. So people interested with this program, they can register by filling that application form, and then we will select it by the qualified candidates. After that, we invited them to the introduction meeting where we introduce about what is OUCRU and what is the HIAB and the aim of the HIAB. After that, people will know each other, and then we get them to work on the third reference and get their consent before they join this group, that group. And after the introduction meeting, we will invite them to the HIAB meeting. Usually it's held for 3 or 4 times per year with the participation from the researchers and the health professional, and include the research topic for the discussion. And after that, we will have the review for the first year for the membership and the way we operate. And normally we will review the membership after 2 years to know that should we include recruit new member or not. So next slide. So how do we engage with the researcher through the HIB? So the way we do it, usually we meet together through a meeting around 2 or 3 hours. So during the COVID meeting, we meet them through the online platform, but after that, usually we meet them through the in-person meeting, which we found that it's easier to facilitate on and discuss together through an in-person meeting. And we discuss different and diversity of a topic like the input for study design, or we review the study materials, that how to make the community easy to understand our study material and appropriate with our culture. And one of the topic we discuss more is about the ethic consent, like we review the consent form or the confidentiality in for the participant when joining the study, especially for some sensitive topic. Next slide, please. And of course, we face a lot of challenge during operator is. So our challenge is, you can see we have a gender imbalance in the membership. So this is why, because we think that maybe in our culture, the women are more participating in the social work than men, and that's why the one we can invite is more women than men. And the second obstacle for us is about limited researchers' engagement. So not of all the researchers in our group are familiar with the concept of HIB or familiar with the value that can bring to their research. So that's why not all of them are engaged with the HIB or hesitate to participate in that. That's now where we still do a lot of activity for the internally to promote more this program for the culture of our research environment. And the last one is about lack of a structure feedback mechanism for the HIB member. So we found out we rarely, the HIB member rarely receive the feedback follow up, like how their feedback contribute to the research and how useful they are. It's happened because sometimes the change usually happen very long time after that, and we lose the tracking with the researchers, and we don't have a building a structure when we feedback back to the HRMB member. So we think that it somehow will affect to the motivation and perceived value that's for their role when they join HIB. And now we are building more develop the mechanism in the future to how we can feedback back and follow up well with the HRBB member. Next slide, please. And we also learn a lot of lessons over the time. So first of all is we learned that about the voluntary active recruitment. We learned that the member that with the voluntary to join us, so it will help them to motivate them and commit them to participate in group. That will help them maintain the group easier and longer. And the second point is about building a core group. So we keep a core group stable, but we allow to ask the extra member depend on the specific of the study. So it's allow flexibility during that and allow the diversity for the group. So we can discuss depend on the requirement of a specialty topic of research topic. And the third one, we found that Zalo is a popular messaging app using in Vietnam, and it is very convenient and quick effective way for us to communicate with the community member than we use other ways like email or phone. And next is about health information that we deliver in each meeting. We found that all of HIB member very appreciate that the health information that they learn from the meeting that we deliver, and they are always request us that if we can share more about the health information, this will be helpful for them because they feel that learn a lot and they consider as a beneficial when they choose in this group. And the last one is about the involving the voice of the community from the start of the study. It will be more helpful and impactful than where we involve it in the mid way, because that maybe you know that we difficult to change something if we already get the ethic approval or when the start already implemented. So if we can input something at the beginning, very early in the initial process of study, it will be helpful for researchers to do adjustment later. Yeah, so that's all what we are sharing today. And in conclusion, we found that it's very useful for a researcher to be able to talk with the community member to understand about their perspective and also understand how the community perceive our study. Thank you for listening, and I'm looking for your question later.
Brilliant. Very lovely presentation, Huong. Thank you so much. It's so interesting how kind of the lessons learned and challenges seem actually quite universal and things that I've certainly experienced in my practice and I'm sure others have as well. And really looking forward to asking you more questions about that as we go along. So thank you very much for your presentation. For everyone in the audience, please do, whilst it is still fresh in your mind, put your questions to Huong using the Q&A function, and we will try and address them all during the Q&A portion of our session, which is coming up later. And thank you everyone for saying hello on the chat. Please keep the hellos coming. I know there's a couple of my colleagues that I will give a shout out to, Dr. Swagata, hello, Saima, and Professor Niket particularly. But let's move forward. We have 3 more excellent presentations coming up. And next, I would like to introduce you to Pradeep Narayanan from Praxis in Delhi in India. And he's an advisor for the Praxis Institute for Participatory Practices and is a practitioner of participatory methods and approaches. His key areas of interest include decolonization, ethics, participatory research, responsible business, and sustainable development. He also convenes initiatives such as the Sindhanai and Global North Dominance Watch, which advocate for decolonizing debates on mandatory human rights due diligence and participatory research. He's on the International Advisory Board and groups in journals such as Community Development Journal and Journal on Business and Human Rights. And he also engages as visiting and honorary fellow and faculty at Durham University, Nalsar, Hyderabad, and ISA in Manasar. And it will be really interesting now for us to see a very different perspective, particularly from business, ethical, and legal lenses. Pradeep, thank you for being with us, and please take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much for this. And thank you for the previous presentation. Also, it was really interesting. And I will just add to the, debates, discussions which are there. And I come from an organization which has been working on participatory methods and practices, and has always been trying to build community into the picture. And it comes from a belief that just being participatory is not necessarily means it is ethical, and these are very different dimension, and participatory research has its own ethics. That is one premise. And second premise is we are in a setting of the global in the era of the decolonization is an important thing. It has become a buzzword in the last 4 or 5 years, but our journey on this ethics is much older than that. But one thing which we realized during the process was, if I can call a region geopolitical global north, and global north has always had a control over funding, has a control over publishing, has control over academics, certification of knowledge. But one thing which was very less talked about is how global north often controls the ethics also. So that made us think that why don't we look at from the community-led ethical review processes. Yeah, the next slide. So our journey on community evaluation group, or community advisory group, or forming community action research group, this has been continuing for many years, and it has its own very good experience. But we wanted to differentiate those from our journey on community-led ethical review board. It started sometime in 2010 to 12, when for an HIV program, we started bringing on board the community-led ethical review board. And our colleague, our earlier colleague, Professor Joe Thomas, was somebody who introduced us to this particular thing, and we had a capacity building program. And this continued. And in fact, the last community ethical review board is something which is currently standing on anti-trafficking debates. Yeah. The next slide. What is important is to, what is community-led ethical review board? It is as a process. It is like we have to form a ethical board, and often three things are important in forming the board. One, we want the community members who are part of some struggle, or the topic or the theme of any kind of the research. And second, they need to be part of the the marginalized identity, which is important for them. And then they should have some research experience, so that they can have the lived experience of marginalization, identity, as well as research. I think this is something. And often the most important question everybody asks is, how do you choose members for your community-led ethical review board? This is a very important question, but rarely this question is ever asked for institutional review board. But that is important. But we thought what is more important is the next two stage, that what happens in the ethical review board process and how it is done. So it is generally a 2 or 3 days review process, where we discuss around, first we evolve the principles of ethics, and followed by reviewing the research protocols with the community, and then evolve certain kinds of recommendations part of it. Yeah, the next slide. And so our challenge has always been on the second part of it, which is that how to forming is one part of it, but also how to evolve ethics, how to evolve responsibility. Because often in the institutional review board settings, you have an institution as a focus. Often institution also gives the board gives a kind of a guiding principles for it. How will you define it? And because community is not a monolith, there are many sections of communities who are there, part of the groups. How do you bring consensus? How do you build what are the benchmarks of a good review board looks like? All these things are there. Thankfully, there are no blueprints for this. And therefore, I think this has been a challenge for us. And that's one reason we could not mainstream it as an important thing. Yeah, the next slide. But if I look at it, there are three questions which always stands up in most of our discussions on when it happens within the ethical review board. One, we have realized that the challenging areas of research. Especially institutional review board often have these challenges of, whether we can do a study on, say, child sex abuse, some of the areas which are very delicate, sensitive, etc., and how to talk about these studies. So often institutional review board err on the side of the caution. Whereas when we talk with the communities, they want more and more risky studies to be studied, and they want more and more areas which are understudied to be studied more. So therefore, that is something which we have seen often from the community boards, that they are actually ready to face some of the most challenging thing. Second one is, of course, on the compensation issue, which is also key debates which happens in any ethical review process. But some of the debates which comes out is about there is a reality of a current transaction method where everything needs to be compensated. So if it is, so some of the principles they evolve is very clear that if it is time, then that should be at par with researcher. But if it is for information, then it should be at par with profits that arise from the program. And if it is for washing away the guilt, like career, fame, then monetize the same and pay. So if it is, but there is another point is also which is important, is if it is about solidarity, then ensure that the use of research is co-owned and invest on that. Also ensure that the compensation does not become a norm, that many grassroots community organizations are not able to do research anymore. So compensation debates from ethical dimension opens up a lot of debates within the community ethical review board process. I think the third one is about the third, which is largely on the consent letter. And we know that consent letter has become actually like a magic wand for the research industry. And the consent letter was actually meant to be an instrument of acknowledgement of researchers having conveyed all risk and potential harm to the community. But what it has emerged is that it is researchers almost absolve themselves of any responsibility once the consent is taken. And we all know that the consent letter is always with the researcher. It is rarely with the community. So literally, consent letter is often to protect the institution from any disrepute coming from any community standing up against any of the research. So therefore, an ethics of consent letter also needs to be studied. Yeah, the next one. Yeah. Some of the key takeaways which I feel comes out in this process is that often the wordings in the questionnaire the questionnaires are worded in such a way that they literally have an overtone of patriarchy or racism or neoliberalism, which are rarely discussed in, I would say, in the research protocol in a big way. And the second one is the pedagogy of asking questions is something which is again another area where we feel that a lot of debates open. And then whether there are any investment on ensuring that the communities own the purpose of the study, how the study would get used, is another area. And the last one is, what is the ideology of the researcher or the research institution, and how does that ideology, research is becoming an instrument to promote that ideology? And if promoting that ideology, how much it is going to harm the community? These are the areas which are rarely studied in the ethical literature or ethical review board processes in the thing. So that is something which comes out. I have two examples, but probably I will stick to only one example for lack of time. Is the next slide. Yeah, this is on a participatory action research on addressing female feticide. Yeah, the next slide, please. So here, if you can just see that this was one of the things, one of the study protocol where we build the capacities of community-led ethical review board members, and where it is about a survey with 50 women on agency to eliminate sex selection. And the purpose of the study was primarily to identify various posters which can actually help women beat the sex selection process or which happens. So which is the best poster which can be used for campaigning. And this is a poster which was identified by the research team as which has a very good will have an impact on the issue of female feticide. So when this was reviewed by the community board, the next slide. And this poster, you can say this is the poster is about which depicts the fetus from the mother's womb telling the mother, please do not kill me. So while it looked like few members said that, you know, it has a very emotive angle and it will be very powerful. If mothers are ready to stand up against the evil, this is the right poster. Whereas ideologically, the debate also said that this poster actually reinforces patriarchy. So the end outcome of the equity would not be achieved. So the idea here is that in one angle of achieving the project outcome, some of the ways we use the research, it might be successful, but in other areas it might be something from an ideological angle or a long-term impact of such kind of a thing can be studied. The point which I want to make here is that these are something which is rarely studied in the ethical review board processes. How to bring those debates into the discussions is something which we thought which is a big takeaway for us from this entire thing. Yeah, just next slide. If you can go to the subsequent slides. Yeah, even this one, leave it. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. I'll just go to the last slide. Yeah, one more. Yeah. So if I see I will share the PowerPoint with you. It has one more example, but ideally, lack of time, I was thinking that just to have a good reflection on this particular thing is about the fact that one, I feel that a number of decisions are often taken at the research and program level. Discussions are research and taken at program level, but which appear very rational from the lens of research objectives. But there is a possibility of intrinsic presence of patriarchy, racism in the way the questions are framed, way the questions are decided, etc. This is often not seen as the remit of the ethical review board. But that is because an institution, it is from an institutional setting. But when it is from a community setting, the ethics becomes much more wider for them. So that is where one big challenge comes into picture. Second is within the group also, there is a multiple opinions sits there. And those, they all bounce with their own ideological viewpoint. And we can see that in our processes, a discussion goes on for a very long time. And sometimes only the time is the factor because of which a decision gets taken. And I'm sure this might be actually true for any ethical review board process, but often, these are not something which is brought into the discussions in a big way. And the third one is to say that the positionality of the researcher is somewhere we have to bring it into the debates, because often a harm which can happen to the community post the use of the research product is much more than the research process itself. So these are some of the debates. And this is something a continuous learning for us. So I would stop here for Kaftan, but I'm open for any other discussions. Yeah, thank you so much.
You as well, Pradeep. Thank you so much for your presentation, and you've given us quite a lot to think about and to reflect on, and things that, I don't know if many of us do stop to think and question. And I liked your one of your early quotes, really, that you said, which was, just because it is participatory does not mean it is ethical. And it kind of highlights that not all engagement is inherently good or beneficial. And I look forward to getting into that topic and debate, perhaps in the question and answer session. Please do, again, use the Q&A function at the bottom of your Zoom screens to put some questions to Pradeep, which he may answer in writing during the other presentations or at the end verbally. But now we are moving towards the next speaker, Dr. Arishay Hussaini, who I have to declare is my very close colleague and work wife here in Pakistan. She is a research and public engagement coordinator at the Critical Care Research Group at Ziauddin University. She has actively participated in implementing and conducting various research projects, including international randomized control trials, qualitative and observational studies. Her interests lie in exploring and improving the experiences of study participants, and she aims to work with the local population in Karachi in Pakistan to set research priorities and make the findings of the research relevant to the Pakistani population. And she's here to share her experiences of public and patient involvement engagement. Please, Arishay, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Timo, and thank you everyone for joining us here today from all parts of the world. And thank you to the MESH community for giving me this platform to share my personal experiences. I have to declare that I am speaking on behalf of a very dedicated group of individuals who are also present today in Karachi, including Professor Madiha, Professor Nikhat, Dr. Maham, and Timo, who together have made this project and have turned it into what it is today. So what we want to do today is just share some strategies that we think have been effective in fostering meaningful communication within our patient and public involvement and engagement group. So here we go. So the first thing is, why do PPI groups matter? There's enough evidence and literature that show that PPI groups can positively impact research. These groups foster genuine two-way conversations between researchers and communities. This engagement then enhances transparency and builds community trust. As a result, there are improved recruitment numbers, long-term engagement, and higher quality outcomes. Through engagement efforts, we are able to address participation barriers and conduct more ethical and relevant research that is reflective of community needs and applicable to local context. So recognizing the importance of such groups, Ziauddin University set up the first ever PPIE group in Pakistan that aims to integrate the public voice into clinical trials. We were able to do so with the support of a bursary from the Mahidol Oxford Tropical Medicine Research Unit, or MORU. The project officially launched in Ziauddin in June 2023. We started recruiting our members around July. In September 2023, we had the first ever PPIE meeting. And since then, our group has been working tirelessly and passionately to contribute to clinical research. As recent as March 2025, when together with our group, we have started to develop a strategy for dissemination of trial results. So moving on to communication. To communicate effectively, we prioritized understanding our members. We used the My Involvement profile adapted from a template created by Shaping Our Lives to collect key information. This included personal details such as contact details, preferred language, spoken or written, access and support needs such as on-the-day assistance, document preferences, whether they would prefer Word, PDF, email, WhatsApp messages, if they had clarity on reimbursement processes, and also to set clear communications between both members and the coordinators. So what the members expect from this group and what the coordinators can actually offer. This profile was completed collaboratively with members reviewing the information as it was being entered, and they also received a copy to ensure accuracy. We've written about our experiences of using this profile and establishing this group, and we're going to link it in the chat. So if you want, you can read it at your convenience. Yes, so this is a picture of our group. Now, we took several steps to create an inclusive and equitable environment. The first thing was we avoid the use of formal titles. For example, I don't introduce myself or speak about myself as Dr. Arishay in any of the meetings. This is to reduce hierarchy and ensure that all members engage on equal footing during the meetings. Secondly, we prioritize greater female representation. Now, this is where context and social background becomes so relevant, because in our society, we believe that the female voice is often suppressed and women do not have enough autonomy. So this was our way of amplifying the voices that we thought are often suppressed in our situations. And we co-created materials with members instead of presenting pre-prepared documents for approval, because we think that this gives the members ownership and makes them a process of the decision-making process. So so how do we effectively communicate? We can share and we can ask them to share and understand their priorities and what is important to them. For example, one of the activities that we did in the first ever meeting that we had with our group was an icebreaker session where we asked our members to share what brought them here and what was important for them. And through that, a lot of the members were able to link emotionally and, understand that they were all working towards a common goal, which created this level of comfort between them. Recognizing and respecting that people are there from diverse backgrounds, including varying educational levels. And conducting meetings in preferred languages, using clear and simple words, avoiding jargon. Now, an example of this is that through the My Involvement profiles, we were able to discern that the most commonly spoken language was Urdu. However, not all of our members could read Urdu script. So one way that we thought we could be more inclusive was to prepare all our presentations and written materials in Roman Urdu so that everybody on that table could read and follow conversations. So to reiterate, actively listening and involving members in decision makings about the terms of reference they would like to abide by, project timelines and deliverables, clearly communicate expectations, the impact of their contributions, and deciding together on appropriate steps. Also, ensure that every perspective is heard and respected, recognizing their contributions through fair financial compensation and recognition in academic and non-academic ventures. So we also create meeting agendas with our group because our members prefer focusing on one topic per meeting rather than having multiple open-ended discussions without any conclusions. So we sit together with them to develop these agendas. We also offer various communication options such as in-person meetings, online sessions, or hybrid, depending on what is most convenient for our members. The only thing that is important to us is that we have a minimum of 50% attendance, and we will conduct the meeting however they would prefer. We also have meetings on WhatsApp to ensure ongoing engagement and accessible engagement. To provide capacity building and support our members to take on tasks like reviewing consent processes, we partnered with the Center of Bioethics and Culture, which is an external organization specialized in bioethics. CBEC provided training on research ethics and explained the importance of informed consent to our members so that they felt more comfortable to contribute to these discussions around informed consent processes as they arose. So this is there. Now, what works in practice? Be flexible. I think this has been one of our most important learning. Be flexible and adapt to member preferences. So initially, we scheduled in-person meetings every 6 weeks. However, our group thought that this was not a very efficient approach and so opted for more frequent meetings. And then when they were tasked with a particular job of reviewing a participant information sheet for a particular critical care trial, they chose to meet weekly, and we just facilitated their preferences. One question that really drives us at night is, are we doing this right? Being the first group of its kind in our context and with very limited literature from low and middle income countries that actually describe best practices of public engagement, we didn't know if what we're doing is correct. So to address this, we proposed an evaluation study to identify the barriers and facilitators of engagement within our PPIE group. This study gathers insights from all those involved, including the group members, group coordinators, the senior institutional leads, and our protocol just got published yesterday in Welcome Open Research. I've linked it here. You can have a read to get more an in-depth understanding of our methodology and what we did. A few things that we learned from this process was that our members would like to share their opinions post-meetings anonymously to just maybe suggest some improvements or just to say how much they engaged, and also to regularly check in with our members to assess their capacity and their interest and to see that if they have time for the tasks aligned or whether they would like to opt out. So I leave with a few key messages. That is, true two-way dialogue requires intentional design and ongoing reflection. build transparency, trust, and capacity within your PPIE groups, encourage shared leadership and decision making, ensure communication is accessible, inclusive, and meaningful, and remain flexible and adapt the requirements of your members. That is all that I have for you today. Thank you very much, and I look forward to all of your questions and answering any thoughts that you might have today. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Arishay, thank you so much for eloquently describing our experiences, and I know you have a lot more to say, and we can see lots of common topics and themes coming through about needing to be flexible, prioritizing, members' worldviews rather than perhaps the researchers' worldviews, and we look forward to discussing some of that in the Q&A portion as well. Now, everybody, it is my absolute and distinct pleasure to introduce to you Zahyd Shuja. He is was one of our first patient and public members of our PPIE group in Pakistan, and he's joining us here today from Karachi to speak about his experiences as a patient and public member. Zahyd is an accomplished human resources leader with over 15 years of experience in talent management and strategic leadership across multinational organizations, specializing in the Middle East in a region and beyond. He's currently working as an associate director at Dubizzle Labs. He has a proven track record of optimizing talent pipelines, driving organizational growth, and aligning leadership strategies to achieve business results. And he has a very exciting LinkedIn profile and posts if you can go and follow him there. Zahyd has successfully led large-scale transformations, built in high-performing teams, and implemented cutting-edge HR technologies. He holds an MSc in Human Resource Development and various certifications, including Talent Optimization Consultancy and Leadership and Management. He is a respected colleague of ours and has helped us a lot in our PPIE group from a human resource perspective. And I now turn over the floor to him. Thank you very much, Zahyd, for joining us today.
Am I visible? Hello, everyone.
You're not currently visible, Zahyd. Maybe try and turn your camera off and turn it back on.
Yeah, just give me a second. Let me rejoin, actually. Yeah, no, there could be an issue with the network. I'm just rejoining.
Okay. So just a moment, everyone, while Zahyd rejoins. Cheers.
This is the reality of us all working in South Asia and perhaps in Southeast Asia as well. Our usual problems with internet. But Zahyd, you did that very quickly, solving the issues. You are now visible, and I will turn the floor back over to you. Thank you again.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from all parts of the world. First of all, I would like to thank all the people who are participating for taking out the time and listening to us. At the same time, to the organizers for allowing us to share our experiences, especially I would like to thank everyone from my end. Okay, so Timo gave a very detailed, actually, brief about me. So I'll just quickly run through it. I'm Zahyd. I'm an HR professional, 15 years of experience, core HR person, worked on all areas of HR. So my involvement in PPIE group. First of all, I had no clue what this group was. I've been Ziauddin, the hospital where this group was convened, is very close to my house. So for every little thing, I usually visit that place. So my actually interaction with this whole group and my involvement started back in 2023 when my maternal aunt fell sick, and she was elderly. She had children who were not in the country, and there was an urgent need of her to be admitted. So I was there, I got her admitted, and then came the actual shock, which was, taking decisions for her while her children were on their way back to our home country, which included this experience to open my eyes to the critical role of patients and their families play in healthcare decision making. I saw firsthand the challenges families face in understanding treatment options and navigating healthcare systems. I wanted to be part of it. That made me realize that this is a big area gap and somebody needs to do something about it. So while I was struggling with all this, I actually Arishay reached out to me, Dr. Arishay, and she told me that they're starting this thing and they're looking for people, volunteers who would, kind of. So my reason joining this team, for me, joining this team felt like a natural step to contribute my experiences and insight to improve the patient experiences for others. Because I strongly believe if you've had a bad experience somewhere, that doesn't mean that you just let it go. If you can address it, maybe and fix it and improve it for somebody else. So that's what it is. I feel that's also a chance for me to give back and ensure that give back to society and make that little difference in this. So that's pretty much it from my end. Yeah, one thing I would add would be that since from a regional perspective, and if I talk about a group specific, like Pradeep mentioned one thing that Pradeep highlighted that the wording in a lot of documentation, that is my biggest concern. And that is something we did actively work on, and I'm proud of it that, we're trying to fix that. Other than that, like Arishay mentioned that, we have a bilingual team, right? So like I can not read Urdu, nothing to be proud of, but I can read Roman English. So when we were doing this, uh, the reason I feel our group was successful was because very little details were looked into from the participants' perspective, and that made our involvement even more there. So that's pretty much it, Timo, from my end. If any questions.
Thank you so much, Zahyd, for your thoughts and your experiences, and we'll get to more of it during the Q&A portion, and that's what we are moving on now. So I invite all of our panelists to return to the discussion with their videos on, and I invite all of our attendees to please use the Q&A function to ask your questions from this fantastic panel. They have collectively huge amounts of experience, and we really want to benefit from their perspectives. We have just over half an hour to discuss. I'll take the chair's prerogative to ask my question first, before moving on to some of the attendees' questions, and it's actually for Zahyd. And I'd really like to know, when you tell your colleagues, your family members, your friends that you are part of this public engagement initiative, what's their reaction? What do they think about this? What's their perception?
See, it's a very tricky question, actually. If I would say out of 10, 2 think probably I'm wasting my time, to be honest. But majority do understand that there's a big gap and this needs to be addressed. So majority do are surprised that there's something like this initiative was taken with doing that. So that was the first shocker which comes to people when you tell them that I'm part of this. So when I explain to them what we're doing and why it's important, so when you explain it to them, they definitely understand the need of the art. And as you've been a frequent visitor of us, and you've realized even within our group, right? Like the first time Arishay shared this document with us, it seems simple, but when you start reading it, it's okay. But see, it's easier to sign it for yourself, but it's very difficult when you're taking a decision for somebody else. And so, yeah, my family, my friends, a lot of people got involved. Even at work, I shared my experiences. And one thing which I forgot to mention was that since being in HR for 15 years, I deal with a lot of employee queries and grievances. And surprisingly, majority of the grievances for my employees when it related to medical was coming from them when they were visiting hospitals. And it was not an administrative issue or a medical issue. The grievance was not related to that. It was more about communication. that what the doctors and the hospital was trying to communicate to them or what they were asking, they were clueless, right? So again, trying to be, like I said, making that small difference, and definitely we see improvement. We've seen Arishay's been very active. You've been very active. So yeah, the team, how the team works. So yeah, I feel that, like I said, it's a 70-30. Majority agree, but when you ask them to be participative, a lot of people are a bit hesitant because they feel that, from a medical standpoint, like a lot of people question me. They thought just because I have a degree in I have a degree in in science, so they're like, you're taking your degree way too seriously. Don't forget that you're HR. So how are you there? It did make sense, but then when you explain it to them that I'm not there from the medical side, I'm giving my perspective, sharing my experiences from a patient and an attendant side. That's another side. So there's two sides. It depends which side. So again, whenever I'm dealing with people, it depends which side of the table they're sitting at. Like my cousin who's a doctor, he questioned me. He's like, how can you question these documents? Do you have any experience? How can you question these things? They're well thought of, well designed. So there was a whole debate we had, right? So he took it a bit upon himself. He found it a bit offensive that, why was I? So when I explained it to him in detail that I'm not questioning the hospital practices, we're not questioning the treatment. What we're trying to fix and tweak is how it is conveyed.
Yeah.
The communication. So I'm like, we're working with that. We're not saying that, change this practice. We're not saying change this treatment, but we're saying, how do you communicate both to the patient as well as to the attendant? Yeah. So this is.
And I think you bring up two very good kind of topics and points. And so one is how do we think about expertise when it comes to healthcare and research? What constitutes expertise? Do you need to be a medical doctor in order to have a say? And what's the value of lived experience as a patient or a carer and that kind of expertise? And it ties in very closely with hierarchies and who has the power and who's perceived to have the power to challenge individuals. And I think Pradeep also mentioned quite a lot of, also wider things of who holds power in the research world, what viewpoint do we have? But going along this line of kind of how do different people perceive and benefit from public and patient involvement and engagement, there's a question for Huong from Eva Simarmata. And she asked for you to give kind of practical examples of how the researchers in OUCRU Vietnam have found the advisory board to be useful for their research. And maybe you can also expand on that and just give us a little bit of a flavor of how do researchers perceive advisory boards and their input?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the question. So I will give some practical example and we discuss more about that later. So I can give you some example, like suggest if like we do a study about death and dying. So in our culture, when we talk about something dying, it's not easy for us to use the word to talk with the people. Sometimes we need to avoid some sensitive words. So in that case, the research study team come to this group and approach the questionnaire with them and let them to review the questionnaire. So how we ask them, like do a pilot interview, and people will have input on that questionnaire, like how they think about the word they use, which question you should ask before you ask that question for make the people feel easier or they can understand, or that's they make a video that to show the people understand about their study. So that video also show for the classroom first to see how easy to understand about the animation or the word, or is it the voice over something. So all of that they will review by that group. So later it's help the study team easier when they come down to the community to interview people. So another example, sometimes the researcher come with the research idea and they ask about that. So maybe you cannot see very clearly the output there, like what change later, but sometimes it's have to shape the perspective of the researchers. Why they think that? Should we change something in their thinking when they build the research, they study? Like one researcher come to approach about thinking about the disabilities after you discharge, when you get TBM meningitis. You know, when some people get TB meningitis, when they discharge, they can get the disability very severe, some very slight, but some very severe. And we have a scale for a doctor to evaluate which scale is good, which scale is like severe. But that is based on the doctor, not from the community. So we come back with the community, how they think that scale. Is it the scale doctor evaluate the same with the top of the community or not? So somehow we see different, like the way the community think that the one become good when they discharge is someone they can return back to work, because if they cannot work, they will be a dependent for their family. So they will become very like cannot earn money anymore. So in Vietnam, if you cannot earn money, you don't have any support from the healthcare system. That is different in the perspective between the healthcare system in a low resetting country with a developed country, and how a researcher, when they develop, when they try to rescue people from the TBM, how they can make the people turn back to normal life based on the scale of the community, better than a scale based on a redefined by a doctor. That is some example, but the one like I mentioned before, we somehow get difficult on how we know something is get a good outcome after the meeting or not, because the outcome not happen immediately after the meeting. Sometimes you need time to train for study proposal. Maybe you meet this, but after next year or 2 years, the study happened. So it's quite difficult for us to follow and update with the top member, the HIV member later. Yeah, that is some of our practical example and the issue now.
Thank you very much for sharing that. And I agree with you. You know, people's priorities on what is important to them, it's not uniform even within a single country, let alone across the world. And I think we have a lot of voices from higher income settings, and you can't just copy paste that and expect that the priorities remain the same. So thank you for reminding us of the importance of that. Kind of continuing on the track of impressions of PPIE, Mary Chambers has a question for Arishay, specifically about, did you experience any challenges motivating the research principal investigators to utilize the PPIE group? And if you could talk us through that a bit.
Thank you, Timo. I was just aggressively typing to the comments, but now I think I have to delete the whole comment. So yes, excellent question, Mary. The way that our group is established at the moment was to review the informed consent processes and dissemination strategies of 2 critical care trials that were already running at our institute. So while this has been formed as an advisory group, and we have a request form in which PIs can reach out to our groups to ask them for input on different topics, that we haven't had the opportunity to do that yet. And we are still currently in the process of completing for preparing relevant infographics and having more simplified information sheets and informed consent forms for the trials that we were already working on. But we honestly believe that once we have that as an output, as a tangible output, we can show it to our clinicians to show them the impact that simplifying these procedures or developing these additional materials can be very supportive, just to give them an idea of what PPIE can actually do, because PPIE is a very, very unknown concept in Pakistan. Research is a very, very less known concept in Pakistan. So it is a struggle to first explain to people what research is and then how PPIE can improve it. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but we haven't had the opportunity to engage with research PIs in that capacity as of yet, but we're trying.
Thank you, Arishay. And certainly, I mean, people know about the existence of this group, but I think a lot of people just don't know how to use it. So it's kind of our responsibility a little bit as practitioners to make that easier for them as well. We talked about kind of perspectives on PPIE and different groups, and I'd like to come to you, Pradeep, now to talk a little bit about ownership and who has power, who should have power. And there's a question from an anonymous attendee about the data ownership. Is it data that's collected? Who does it belong with? And I'd like to extend that question to be a bit like, but who owns research? Who owns even public engagement? And where would you like to see that head in the future?
Yeah, no, thank you so much for asking this question, because these are the crux of the community. Why we at all go for community advisory boards or an ethical board, because I think somewhere the resource is one big constraint in the research, in terms of how much we can involve community and to what extent. So often we involve community only for data collection, and we call it as very participatory also, by making data collection very participatory. The more the participatory data collection is, without participation of community in setting research agenda, setting research objectives, setting use of the research, it should be called as extractive, right? It is a participatory extraction of information from the community. So unless there is a very clear way of, we've also been culprit of this thing for many years, promoting participatory methods and approaches which are just focusing on data collection. But we have never found out like how the quantitative survey can be participatory, like the very way by which you can share the questionnaires with the community, as Zahyd was telling, that the way of asking question, the kind as questions get asked, kind of ideology which is percolated through those questions. Like some time ago, we will ask whether privatization is good or bad, and now the questions are asked like how privatization is good, right, of health. So the change of the questions, the tonality of questions actually gives a research a direction already, and that kind of a leading questions are never taken from an ethical premise. So that's where we want to push that as an ethical premise. So the data comes after that, questions come first, right, and the data comes later on, and the data ownership is another big issue about it, with more on the entire debates on intellectual property, patenting, etc. There is a pressure on people to give money or compensation to the community, because it's at the end it's a neoliberal transaction model. Like if you are making profit out of it, give it to community, right? But it's a lethargic model, right? At the end, if a community starts owning the research, if you invest that much money globally on owning the community, owning the research, community processes by which then you don't need this entire business of compensation through this method. Because if a community is actually owning the agenda, they will voluntarily participate if they want to address HIV, if they want to address any of the issues, it is their issue also. But often that is not invested upon from both angle. And I think it is also very important to present here the geopolitical dynamics of it. The just giving money to the thing means you have already spent money on the community. That means the data is ours, right? And whoever owns this. So it's another way of telling people that I have already paid you for your information, right? So these are all coming from a mindset which often rarely gets challenged. So that's where, for us, these community ethical review board are not merely about community participation in in a particular data collection or a research process, but it is about macro level, how we can build community participation to challenge many things, including patriarchy, including racism, including casteism. I think there are many things which we can bring debates into it. Yeah. I don't know, I answered your question, but the idea here is that we may have to go much, much farther through these debates.
I mean, I think we could sit here and talk for days, at least I'd like to, about appropriate compensation or kind of these models and how do we recognize individuals. And I'd like to actually bring Zahyd into this conversation about compensation and recognition. As a patient and public partner, what's your perspective on appropriate compensation for your time and contribution to the research efforts?
See, it depends, right? Again, it all depends on what financial situation you're at, where you at. Like for me, I had a different reason. Money was never the motivation, right? From day one. For me, it was more focused on, hello, guys can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So for me, it was more about that. But yes, compensation does help with keeping in mind that, there's certain people who want to be part of it, but maybe the commute cost, the transportation cost, it just helps. So it's not going to cover, it's not like if I'm spending 3 hours, I expect to be paid for those 3 hours, right? The only thing is, I just think that, that just gives me a bit of a cushion, right? So, so it's not something, it's not like an additional expense. But see, in today's world, everything has become an expense. You get out of the house, it's an expense. You step out of your main door, it's an expense. You start spending money, right? And then everyone has their fixed responsibilities. Like if I talk about myself, I'll be very honest. I'm a salaried person. So I have very fixed expenses. I have portions of my salary going on certain things, right? So adding this additional activity, if I would say, no offense to anyone, but that just does not involve my time. It involves me leaving my house, commuting from point X to point Y, depending on where I am at. If it's close to my house, it's farther from my house. What's the cost of it? What's the mode of transportation I'm taking? Am I going by a public transport? Am I taking my own personal car? There's a parking cost to it. You know how it works. In our country, there's like, once you leave the house, there's parking everywhere. You have to pay parking charges everywhere. And so a lot of factors were there. So again, yes, this just, I won't say it's a benefit, but it's more like a cushion. It's more like I'd say, I can't put the word on it. Arishay, help me out. Something like, we had a discussion on it initially as well. So yeah, so my point is just a question. I don't, people, if someone is getting involved, like a friend of mine wanted to get involved, so he's like, do I get paid? I'm like, yeah. He's like, how much? I'm like, not, man, it's not your birth, it's not your pocket money. I'm like, so don't consider, like, don't take it as a part-time job gig or something. It's like more on the basis of it's a nice to have thing. It's a feel good factor that, if I spend my time to it, I'm getting some some sort of compensation. Because see, when we have a group, if we have a diverse group, there's certain people who are probably working that day when we're meeting that day. There's certain people who have a very fixed budget, right? So expecting them to be available so frequently, not everyone owns a car, right? So there are a lot of factors you consider. So again, it's helpful.
Absolutely, thank you, Zahyd. And Arishay is going to come in as well.
Yes, I just this is a very interesting and something that is very deeply close to my heart, because I am the engagement coordinator and I speak to all these people before they become part of my group, our group, sorry. And I think while all of our members, all of them, they are not motivated financially, and even though there is no problem in giving compensation, and there is no problem in even expecting financial compensation, because you are taking out time from something that is not your job. I feel like in our set up, especially and like from where we belong, if finance is what's driving you to do this work, then it really doesn't align with the work that we're doing. So for me, that is
Agreed.
actually something, it becomes a bit of a vetting process that when I tell somebody about this, and instead of asking me, okay, what work do you do? The first question they ask me is, are we getting paid? It gives me they're only doing this for the money, which doesn't agree or sit in with the rest of our group who are being compensated, but they are not in it for the money. I hope I made sense with that, but that is something that we also look at.
Spot on, Arishay. And I would second her thing because with the group interaction, everyone's like that. So yeah, very good observation.
I think compensation also kind of ties into sometimes about to thinking about diversity. And as you say, Zahyd, you know, different members will have different requirements, and we certainly don't want in our groups to have systemic barriers to participation and engagement because of, you know, the fact that you can't necessarily drive. I can't drive. I'm reliant on Arishay driving me around. Not being, you know, prevented because of mobility issues and all of those things. And Huong, you in your presentation talked about diversity in a group, and I know Pradeep, you also mentioned sort of we're so overly focused on the diversity or membership of our groups, but who's worried about the diversity of IRB members otherwise? But I wondered if both Pradeep and Huong, you could share your thoughts a little bit on diversity in kind of engagement efforts. Huong, I'm going to push you to go first.
I can go first. So the diversity is here. So we try with the gender, with the background, so with the somehow the income. So like when we recruit, we ask them to fill some part in the application form, so we know that like what they do. So we first of all we think about, we try to different career in there, so we know because different career, the way they approach the thing is quite different. So one of that, and yeah, the second thing is about income. Some they get better income than the other, but because we try to have a diverse group, so we also include different groups. Some also because it depends on the job that people do, somehow it affect to the income. So but we don't want to get like some people like very like after just graduated, and some people they do that, and some senior people they do other job, but they can get the lower income, or they live in the group that. And we ask for the location, because in Ho Chi Minh City we have a big city, and we try to ask people from different district. So we have because some district they locate different group of people, like some district one is more central, but for some other districts they live far and they get a lot of migration from the provincial. So we have other people. So that is some kind of diversity in our group.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Pradeep, please come in.
Yeah, I think, yes, I totally agree. There is a onus, especially on community-based institution, to be very diverse, and that onus doesn't exist on many other spaces because it comes from an extractive mindset. If we are going to community, let us get it from the as diverse as possible. And but the idea here is also about the fact that actually who is facilitating this diversity is important, because that positionality of the institution, positionality of the person calling for diversity is important. For example, an organization may look at women empowerment, so they might bring in more of women into the group, but they may be afraid to bring a feminist in the group, right? They may like to bring more and more women who are actually patriarchal into the group and put a checkbox into their thing and all. So therefore, the ideology which is important here is the positionality of how a person, because that's what happens in many of the advisory boards. We often look at creating nexus of our own ideology in the group. And we bring on people very homogeneous, although it looks diverse to the external thing, right? So therefore, the idea here is that that's why we always push for ideological diversity in the group. You can even have a male member who is feminist, but at least feminist voices should come, right? We err on the side of the biological identities, etc., but we rarely bring those debates into it. So that's why our first process is asking them 10 questions and finding out what are they answering on those questions. And those questions will give you the ideological compass of the community. And then if you push for debates, then you will have a real debate on even compensation, right? Why it is, or certain words like what one person in the group was also asking, why is it called, female feticide? Why it should not be called a son preference? Why? These are all very ideologically presentable debates which happened in the academic debates, which we don't take it to the community. So, and there's another what Mary asked, it's very, very important in terms of often we do not help the community on what is research. Why is research important? That understanding of research is often with the researchers, and that gives us the luxury to say, oh, this will not be allowed in research, this will not be allowed in, without telling them actually what is a research, why a sampling is done, what is the purpose of an RCT, what is the purpose of clinical trial, why you have a control, why you have treatment. All these questions, if you push in the board, then they will automatically make decisions. Otherwise, it will be in a recommendatory mode. Then we will end up making the decision. So whatever is our limitations in making decisions has to be transferred to the advisory board. Then, their decisions will have as much the addressing of problem. So I will look at diversity in that area, in that way, rather than in the way of how many men, how many women, or how many different religions, etc., which are important. I'm not saying they are not important. They need to be there, but that's not enough. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really like the term ideological diversity, and it really resonates with me because being a Scandinavian white male working in Pakistan, not maybe ideological, but even cultural and just worldview differences. And then it's been a big topic for us of should I be involved, should I not be involved, and what I bring and not bring. And it's interesting, and I do think that Arishay and I particularly do benefit from the fact that we look at the world in a very different way, and I think it enriches the conversation, but it comes with its own, of course, challenges when it comes to power dynamics and things as well. Well, unfortunately, I mean, I could talk to you all for days, but we are coming towards the end of our webinar and our question and answer session. Before we finish, I would like all four of you to very briefly say what is your dream for patient and public involvement engagement. If you could do a 15 to 30-second statement of what do you dream about when you think about public engagement and advisory boards in research, to finish off, and then we'll have a few words from the Mesh network as well. So I will put Arishay on the spot to be the first person to give her closing statement.
Thank you, Timo. I think I have many, many dreams with PPIE, but if I were to share one today, it would be that I would like for the way research is viewed in the future is never without PPIE. So PPIE is embedded into the basic foundation of research everywhere, in all kinds of research, all kinds of trials, all across the board. So it is that basis that now reshapes how research is seen in the future.
Thank you. Pradeep, may I go to you next?
Yeah, I think we should not underestimate the power of research. The lot of mainstreaming of many programs have happened because of research, and often impact of research is known only after the few years of research having done and how they have been used by policymakers in totally a different way than what we thought they should have used. Right. So, and that's why the public engagement around research is important. Any study we do should be owned in the political space through pressure from the public, pressure from the community. I think that's where I feel a lot of this thing is our responsibility to mainstream our study much earlier. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Huong, from your end, final words.
Yeah, similar to Arishay, I also had a lot of dreams, but if talk about one dream, so I think about, I dream that so more and more researchers can acknowledge the importance of the voice of the community or the public engagement in the research. And we can create a culture of research that we always input the voice or the voice of end user of our intervention of our study when we design a study. So we'll make it more practical and meaningful for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. And Zahyd, you are here to close us out with your dream for PPIE.
So my dream for PPI is actually like one, it should be part of any new initiative. Research should be part. Secondly, it should actually go pan-Pakistan. I wish all hospitals, and this can go global. Global it is, but at least in Pakistan, my dream is that, maybe 2-3 years down the road, all hospitals everywhere, this has a small little room where people are sitting and doing some research and trying to make things better. That's my dream.
Thank you. And thank you to all of you presenters. Thank you all attendees for being here, for raising your questions. The ones we could not answer during the session, we will try and compile answers and send them out to you. And you can always see the recording of the session, and additional materials will be shared on the Global Health Network page. Before we close, I also, so thank you everyone. As we have Al Davies, who I'm going to invite up onto the stage as such, to give us a call to action to all of you people interested in and inspired by community engagement. Take it away, Al.
Thank you, Timo. Okay, so first of all, thanks to all the speakers. Amazing presentation. It's actually very useful for us because, as you can probably see, I'm in a meeting in Nairobi with engagement practitioners we have on MESH, or collection of resources. So we have a theme on advisory boards, which contains templates, toolkits, examples of advisory groups. So please tune in to this MESH resource for any information on advisory groups. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Al. And yes, you will find out so many more resources and examples on that page. Please do join there. And thank you very much, all of you, for attending. We hope to see you at future Global Health Network webinars and ones run by MESH. And I will bring that, with that, I will bring this to a close. Have a lovely day and see you again soon. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you, Timo, for hosting us.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.